like you don't have to have the newest iPhone all the time. You can live more mindful, and you will start to question the stories that you were raised with, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And ask yourself, okay, if I'm against this ideology that we are better than others, that if I'm against only one story being told and I'm at the receiving end of those, I'm part of the society that opposes the overarching narrative, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you criticize that. But then you look within your own society and see, well, we are not just victims. What are we doing to this group of people, like on a micro level?
Mm-hmm.
That way, you question the story and understand that if we want to build solidarity within our small circle, then we have to include opposing voices, contesting voices of those that we ourselves oppress, right? And at the same time, you realize, I'm not better than those I'm criticizing. In the end, we are all hypocrites, in a way. I truly believe that, you know?
Yeah, true.
So in some way or the other, and that is what I mean by understanding that, it's easier to develop empathy also for the people that you feel are the evil ones, the perpetrator ones, when we move beyond this perpetrator-victim binary, if that makes sense.
It does, and you have a beautiful YouTube channel, and I'm glad you said what you said, and I'll explain what I mean. Winnie has a YouTube channel, Little Plan Back to Africa, very deep content, solid, and I'm glad we've captured that at the beginning of this conversation. Mm-hmm. Like what you say, I like strong words, consumerism. That's it's a very simple word, but it carries a lot of weight, right? One of your latest videos that I've watched, you talk about the things that keep you locked into the debt system, credits, and lock you down. In fact, there's words like what the West doesn't want you to see, what scares, like strategies like what they do to keep people afraid of investing in Africa. So one of them is consumerism. And you actually bring it up from, when you say you don't have to have the latest iPhone, right? And the system, just to tie back to what you've explained before this, what we're discussing in terms of inheriting, okay? Capitalism as a system is also an inherited system. And one of its best feeding, its best strategies where it grows from, or its tributaries, it's consumerism. It feeds off of that. I saw someone put, and I don't know why I love this example. So someone put up an iPhone charger, an iPhone, the original iPhone. It came with a charger, the brick, the cable, a set of earphones. But today, it just comes with the phone and the cable.
You have to buy the charger
You have
separately.
to buy the charger for extra. So this is capitalism at play. And the person who had actually quoted that tweet was like, they just want you to pay more for what you used to get for. So they look for strategies. The system looks for strategies to actually get you to spend more. And I believe this goes into like the enemy of disposable income. The same thing packaged differently. First of all, they give you the whole phone. You need the whole ecosystem. You can't use the phone without the charger there. Then once you are dependent on the phone, they take away this so that you can buy it separately, right? We've inherited that system, but it plays into our psyche of consumerism, the need to spend more. Is it possible to break out of consumerism?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think first it's important to understand why someone has the urge to have the newest iPhone, the newest sneakers, you know? And I think the reason why, I can just speak from my experience growing up, the main issue was the way that the society I grew up in Germany, and I would say most capitalistic societies, the way they define success, right? And that is, like, for instance, having the newest iPhone, you know, having the biggest car, the biggest house, showing off expensive luxury travels on social media. And because especially social media has created, like, we are living in a time where people are constantly comparing themselves to others, right? What they are seeing on social media, which makes themselves less worthy. They feel like they are falling behind, they are losing in life. And because of that, and because of not understanding that it's not always real what you see on social media, I'm not saying everything, right? But there are so many grifters on social media there are people who take credit in advance to travel the world with the goal to become a successful content creator, travel content creator. So they go into debt before they make even their first dollar. And I think that's because of that. People don't see the reality behind the things they see on social media. And also, I think the urge to flex your belongings, right, stems from like deep-seated insecurity and the desire for external validation, social validation. So these days, I see this so often. People, like, they try to look rich, right? They try to look rich. They want to look rich instead of trying to actually be rich. And now it's really like interesting. Look at the very rich people, like most wealthy people, Mark Zuckerberg. Look at how they dress, you know? Simple.
They try to look poor.
They try to look poor, while the poor are trying to look rich. And that's how they get trapped in this money trap, debt trap.
Would you say for that example, Mike Zuckerberg could probably have the same insecurities, but he doesn't have to deal with that. He doesn't need to show it through how he dresses, because you already know.
Yeah, I would say yes, that he has achieved already so much in life, right? That this is where he gets his validation from. He doesn't need validation from others, right? It's like if you let your actions speak for themselves, if you try to find validation from within, if you don't depend on validation from others, but get it from your achievements, right? As a result, like the effort that you put in your work, your business, whatever, and you see, wow, I can do it, I made it, right? Then you don't, like, you stop caring what others think, especially when you have a purpose. When, like, this is like one of the biggest problems. People care too much about what others think. That's also at the root of having the urge to flex, and at the root issue of consumerism. Because why do you do that? Why do you have the need to feel the need to have these new gadgets, clothes, right? Because it's probably because you care too much about what other people think of you, more than what you think of yourself.
How do you unlock this mindset for you?
I think realizing that people will always judge you. That's one thing I realized in my life. People will judge you really when you have nothing, right? They will say you're poor, look at you, you know? They will judge you when you try to build something, when you're trying to build and achieve something. They will say, they will try to humble you. Who do you think you are, you know? And they will judge you when you have everything, you know? But nobody, I always say that that's what I also realized from starting my YouTube journey, from starting my real estate business. Nobody judges you more than someone who has less than you. Like, you have hundreds of thousands of subscribers. You will not laugh at someone who just started his YouTube channel, you know, because you know how hard it is, and you are too focused on growing, you know, and on you know, creating more content on your business.
Yes.
But it's always that people who have less than you, who secretly like envy you for having the courage to go out there, that will judge you.
So you choose where you want to be judged. You do want to be judged as a poor person, or you just focus on yourself and be judged for having everything?
I would frame it differently. I used to care about what people think of me. People who are not where I want to be in life. People where I actually think, Jesus, I rebuke you. I never want to have your life, you know? And I allow these people to judge my decisions, my dreams. So, and I also realized that caring about what other people think, it's human, you know? It's human. We cannot, there is no way you say, oh, I don't care at all about what people think, because we are social human beings and we need social validation from others. But instead of trying to change what you actually cannot change the people who you are trying to impress. That is what helped me. So I started changing my circle, surround myself with people who are where I want to be in life. And so people where I believe they are worth impressing, you know? People who will respect me, who will empower me, mentor me, teach me, you know, and not look down on me. But because, as I said, right, someone who has more than you, who has achieved what you are trying to achieve, right, they will never judge you because they have been there themselves. And so instead of trying to not care about what other people think, just change the people that you're trying to impress, you know?
That's a powerful statement.
And also find something that's more important to care about, like,
find something that's more important to care about.
Yes.
Caring what people say, it's not important.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Your channel name has a very bold, very creative, and a very direct name. Plan Back to Africa. What do you mean, plan back to Africa, when people in Africa are planning to go to Europe? What's going on there?
I get it, I understand. If I wouldn't have the means, right, wouldn't have the access to education, resources, if I would, let's say, if I was in the shoes of my cousins who were born and raised in Ethiopia and are trapped, right, trying to get by every day with small jobs, then of course, like, Europe is paradise for someone who doesn't have a proper education, who cannot afford to have 3 meals a day, you know? And so, you know, Europe is really paradise. I mean, when I say Europe, I mean Western Europe, right?
Yes.
Germany, the Netherlands, Belgium, who have a social welfare system where you get child support, all these things, you know, where you get scholarships for your studies and things like that. But when you when you start to build something in Europe, right? When you have either achieved certain levels in terms of education, work profession, and whatever, and especially when you start making money, then Europe is hell, actually, you know? Then it's better to go to your country because you can achieve much, much more. And there's also like kind of a cap for how far they allow you to grow in Europe, you know, as an African person, as a black person, you know.
For real?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. If you want, it's so difficult to get into certain leadership positions, you know. And let's say just becoming a CEO of a big company, you know, it's mostly a white male person that has this position. And so there's racism at the workplace, people who will always try to like put you in your place, what they believe, you know, where you belong to. I'm not saying it's impossible, right? But for me, Plan Back to Africa came mainly from a desire to go where I am valued, you know, where I am appreciated, where I'm not seen as less, because, as I said, when you reach a certain level of independence financially, or even if not financially, you know, having skills, if that makes sense, right? Having the skills and the knowledge on how you can make money and succeed is also an incredible asset, right? And if you have that, then you have the choice that many people don't have. The choice, do I remain here, right? And deal with this nonsense, like racism, discrimination at workplace, you know, high taxes, like the government in Germany, they take almost 50% of your money, you know? And then on top of that, they invested into funding wars elsewhere. That's the most horrible part about it.
I don't want us to lose that train of thought, but there's when you say they take almost 50% of your money in taxes, politicians in Kenya have always used that to say, to use it as an excuse to justify the 35% they take from Kenyans, right? But then again, Kenyans, on the other hand, have always argued, you'd rather take the 50%, yes, but we have the amenities that we need. Isn't that the case in a country like Germany? Do they
Absolutely.
take 50% and you have everything such that in terms of liquid cash, you don't need it that much?
I mean, when I say they take 50% of your money, it's the healthcare system, right? At least they invest, you know, into the infrastructure of the country, the healthcare system, education system, and things like that, you know, if that makes sense. So I'm all for taxes, but it should be to the benefit of the people also. If that is not the case, of course, then it's a scam. And it also becomes a scam when a country like Germany then chooses to fund wars and genocide with your taxes, if that makes sense.
They still do that?
They are, I think, the second biggest supplier of weapons and arms to Israel. Yes.
The second
After
largest?
the US, yeah. Second biggest arms supplier.
And what do they get in return for that?
Oh, you don't really want to get into that. We will still be here until tomorrow. It's rooted in the history, you know, because Germany has committed a genocide against the Jews, you know, during the Second World War. And it's kind of a wrong guilt, you know, a wrong guilt they feel towards the state of Israel. They made it, you know, defending Israel and defending the Zionist regime that is in power in Israel became the reason of state. That's how it's literally called. And, you know, it's an unspoken law in Germany that the security of the Israeli state and the Zionists is the reason of state, of the state of Germany. The reason of being, that's the...
It's like a make good for what the Hitler regime did.
Yes, kind of, like a wrong guilt, and it became the main identity in Germany, you know? If you don't acknowledge Israel, you cannot be considered really as a German.
Okay.
Regardless whether that's what we talked about, the victims became the perpetrators, you know, it's at all costs.
Okay, I'll also go do my research on that specific bit. But then again, still on the taxes, because we are on planning back to Africa, still on the taxes, as someone who understands money very well, actually, and I strongly recommend your channel. You understand money very well. I respect your perspective on money. When Karibu, when they take 50%, in a country like Germany, is it accurate to say that beyond the other things they may be involved in, you still don't feel the value for your money?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because the education system, for instance, what is the value if the school curriculum in Germany teaches my children that they are less worthy, right? There are certain things that cannot be measured in terms of numbers, right? Same with ROI, you know, investing in Africa. Like if you live in Germany and okay, you pay taxes and you have this infrastructure like free education, but what education? What is the quality of education? What is the impact on the self-image and self-confidence of an African young child of this education that is looking at Africa, presenting Africa, and telling the history of Africa as a place of backwardness, a place of misery, no achievements, you know? And so what is the value of that? For me, I didn't see no value in that. And on the contrary, it's very damaging, you know?
That shows top-level involvement in even what your child is learning in school.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So what's the process like for you? What's the process like for you to now, you have a background in hospitality, you've done cultural anthropology. What's the process like for you, starting with what really broke the camel's back and you're like, I'm going to invest in Africa?
So it was a process, a long process, I would say. So, and that is basically, of course, I wasted years. I came quite late. I see people now, young people, young professionals leaving behind Germany, the US, at the age of 23, 22, you know. I left Europe when I was 32, you know, when I first moved to Ethiopia and left Germany behind. And I wasted years because I felt stuck. And that is also because of the limiting beliefs that I had, you know. So the plan to one day resettle to the African continent and raise my children on the African continent. I mean, you know, when I don't want to generalize, you know, I had certain countries in mind already, my home country primarily. But because of the experience I made, I knew I don't want to raise my children here because also my values were not in alignment with the values in Germany, you know? And so the desire was always there. But before I was actually able to do that, it was a long process, unlearning those limiting beliefs that you have, the negative beliefs about money, about success, about what you're capable of, you know?
What were those negative beliefs?
So many things, actually, to be honest. I don't even know where I should start. And that was also part of the process, why it took so long, because so many carry negative and limiting beliefs about what they are capable of achieving, about money, about success, but they don't even know what, they cannot identify them. They don't even know because they work on automat, you know, everything they do in life, everyday life, is like by default because of the way we have been programmed. And this can be cultural, for instance, you know, like the way you were raised, cultural upbringing, for instance, the way you see, that shapes a lot the way you see money. Just let me give you an example. In many Ethiopian cultures, including my culture, from the region where I'm from, there is a romanticization of poverty. You know, they romanticize poverty and they see having money, making money as something evil. And what effect does that have, this belief? It has the effect and the belief that you believe you don't deserve success. You believe you don't deserve making money, you know, because you will feel guilty about that, you know? And that's because of the romanticization of poverty. That's just one example. Then there is in Germany, German society, I said it before, that's the hill I'm going to die on. Germany has a culture of envy, you know, and that's not just what foreigners say, that's what Germans say. like when somebody is successful and is making money, you will get 99% negative responses to your success. People will try to discredit your success. They will try to, reverse excuse your success. Say things like, oh, she just made money because she had rich parents, or because many people tell me, for instance, you are only able to get this far because you have a German passport. You are privileged. You are only crushing it on YouTube because you are pretty. Otherwise, nobody will listen to you. They discredit you, they try to take away your effort. That's also one big thing that keeps many people stuck, And also the fear of failure, The fear of failure. That's, I think, the main thing that keeps people stuck. And from moving to the African continent, investing in the African continent, that combined with the negative stories that you hear every day, the stories about failure, scams, corruption in the media, even on YouTube, they outnumber the stories of entrepreneurs who became successful, innovation, resilience, opportunity on the African continent. And so the first step for me to break free and actually make the move to the African continent was becoming aware of my own negative and limiting beliefs. And then it started especially with this mindset, changing my mindset. And that was actually like the turning point for me. The turning point was trying to think positive instead of negative, instead of thinking to myself, what if I fail? What if it doesn't work out when I go to Ethiopia? I asked myself, what if I win? What if I succeed? And that's the interesting thing, because I believe your thoughts, they become your reality. If you constantly believe, I will fail, I'm scared to fail, then this will become your reality in terms of you will not even dare to try, And then when you shift your mindset from, this was also like shifting your mindset, right? In terms of also money, right? And success is not something that happens overnight, because imagine you have been programmed over decades since childhood. So you cannot reverse that in one night. It's a process, right? And part of the process for me was realizing that failure is part of success.
Failure is part of success.
It's part of the process. It's part of the process, right? Like, you will fail, period, but you will get up again, you will learn, you will get out stronger, wiser, you will try again. That's the whole part of it. And so that was basically the foundation that I had to build in terms of my mindset to allow me to dare and go to Ethiopia. But that is something that is internal, that happens internally. But then there was one external event that told me, now I have no other choice but to leave. And that was when the right-wing party came into power in 2015, Something that was unthinkable in Germany, with a history like Germany, seeing that a racist party, like openly racist party, gets enough votes to make it into parliament. And now everyone was laughing, nobody was taking them seriously. They are now the second strongest party in Germany. And my prediction is that they will win the next elections. And so
and
it was
a reflection of who the people are. People say
exactly.
that. So now, how you get to Germany from Ethiopia is through your parents. They moved to Germany from Ethiopia as immigrants.
Yes, as refugees.
As refugees, right? So someone would argue that is this a proper process? Like your experience in Germany is different from your parents' experience, right? So someone in Africa looking at Germany from your parents' perspective, like would you advise them to go get the opportunity, go build, so that their children can have a different experience in Africa?
Absolutely, especially when you come with nothing, right? I mean, my parents, they didn't have no other choice. It was a do or die game, You know, when you're fleeing from civil war, then it's sometimes the only way to save your life, right? And I think I would, of course, right, like, save yourself. Make sure your children can have a better future. But make sure your children stay connected and rooted to their culture. My mother, she refused to speak in German with us because she said, it's funny sometimes. I ask her because I struggle teaching my kids my mother language, you know? My daughter, she understands, she speaks a little bit, she understands everything, but my son, now I'm trying to get them to learn Swahili, you know? I asked my mom, how did you manage teaching us our language? She said, I would ignore you when you speak in German to me. And I remember you were crying, begging, throwing tantrums outside for me, ignoring you when you spoke to me. So I forced you to speak in our native language so that, you know, you will be heard and get the attention you were needing at that moment. And so she sacrificed a lot because for her it meant that she never really learned German, you know, because in our household we would only speak our mother language, Tigrinya, which is spoken in Eritrea and in northern Ethiopia. And what fascinates me, until the age of 3, when I went to kindergarten, right, I couldn't speak a single word of German. So, and then on top of that, she made sure that once she had a job, was able to put some money aside to take us to Eritrea and Ethiopia every 2 to 3 years, you know, to learn our culture, to stay connected with family, you know, and so, yeah.
Oh.
That was very important for her.
It's an interesting maternal instinct because my mother is the only person in our family who can't speak the language of the place we grew up in. And it was embarrassing how she did not care where you are. She would speak to you in your mother tongue. It's a very interesting maternal instinct, actually. Then now, it also brings us to, I'm a big fan of philosophical ideas. So if you, as your mother's child, got an opportunity in a foreign country to be this conscious, right? But that same country does not present the same opportunity to your child. What changed, culture or time?
Time in terms of if it was different, the opportunities back then than today, or?
Yes. Because you as your parent's child, you get an opportunity to become this conscious. But the same country does not present the same opportunity to your children, right? Is it because times have changed? Is it because cultures have changed? Is it because at the level at which you're playing at before you leave Germany, is you've seen the ceiling that you can't grow beyond?
Yeah, I would say it's the latter. Like, for instance, there is a trend across Europe. You see it in France, in Belgium, Germany, the UK, that it's the second generation immigrant kids are now leaving Europe en masse and going back to their country, while the parents, right, and the older siblings prefer to stay in Europe, you know, in that country. And I think the reason why is, so I have older brothers, right? They're significantly older than me. I was born in Germany when I was safe. They were born in Eritrea and Ethiopia. And so they had it difficult when they arrived in Europe. They experienced trauma, they experienced racism. They were among the first immigrants, you know, who came as teenagers. They experienced police brutality. And some of them, they also made it in terms of they got a degree from university, right? And now the second generation, the younger siblings, us, we were actually the first German-born generation, my generation, in the 80s, late 80s. Now, we look at the generation above us, and we see already in their generation how far you can get. And that makes you lose hope, right? And yeah, that's the reason why many in my generation across Europe, Moroccans, they go back to Morocco. And that's interesting. While, for instance, my mother, she cannot imagine to leave Germany. You know, when she came to Germany, they had so much hope they will return after 1 year. They were praying and they were faithful that the war will end after a year. That's why they refused to learn German, for instance. They said, for what? I'm going back home in a year anyway. But then imagine, 17 years, that's how long the Civil War lasted, you know? And then before you look, you know, time passes so fast, right? And you get comfortable. That's the thing. That's the thing. And the more you get comfortable and the stronger your limiting beliefs are, the more difficult it becomes for many to step out of their comfort zone. And that is so important if you want to grow, you know? So they choose comfort over courage. And my generation is a generation, and I think when I see how many young people, like in the age of 20, 21, are saying, I'm out, I don't care. I will make it in Africa. They build startups here, you know, build businesses. They manage to like really, you know, escape, like break free from this trap of fear and having the courage to try something new, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So before we get into how you get into real estate, the first video I watched from your channel, you are shopping for furniture. That stuck in my head. It's actually in my notes as described. And my impression watching the video, you're shopping for furniture, and as you're moving around, you just make a comment. I think the comment was as simple as, this is actually overpriced. I could get this for much cheaper, right? If it's me looking at things from that perspective, there's no justification. It's a rip-off, right? If I'm processing that this is the first time you're actually interacting with prices from this perspective, like something being cheaper in Germany than it is in Kenya, that's a line of discouragement, right? How do you interact with pricing in terms of something you know shouldn't cost much more than? How do you get hope to be part of a business with that culture?
So I must say, for me, like for instance, when I went to these malls and look at the furnitures there, I think for me, of course, the price factor was the main issue, but I also felt that many pieces lacked authenticity and soul, you know?
That's something, as you said, yes.
That was actually like the main issue I had. I don't want to live in Kenya, Ethiopia, wherever, and wake up in a home that looks like a IKEA curated space, you know? IKEA, you know IKEA?
Yeah, I know IKEA.
Yes, so that was the first issue I had. And then the second issue I had was value, you know, value of these things. Something can be expensive, okay, but when you know, the way I treat every purchase now, and that was also like one thing that I learned, is like an equation, right? I ask myself if the value that this thing that I want to purchase, right, is greater than the money that I pay to purchase this thing, then I'm going to buy it, you know, and if not, then not. But the problem with these furnitures was that the value, cheap pieces, cheap wood, and then trying to sell this bed for 200,000 shilling. What? You know? So that was the main issue I had. And then I made the experience in Ethiopia before, in Zanzibar, before I came to Kenya, how highly skilled fundis are. You can show them, they can make anything for you. They can build anything for you, basically. And so that gave me the confidence, my experience in Tanzania and in Ethiopia, to go this route, because I always want to have something that is unique. I always try to support also the local economy, you know. Of course, you cannot get everything from fundis. There are certain things like kitchen amenities, right? Then you have the fridge or laundry machine, whatever that was made in China is fine. But now, especially in Kenya, you have great local brands like Mika, you know. But what I'm trying to say is like value, authenticity, and supporting the local economy. You know, these were my three driving.
You said how you make your purchase decisions now, which means this is a result of very many mistakes before. Is that accurate? For you to arrive at how you process value. And that's a very interesting way of looking at things. If the value you draw from the furniture is more than the price you're paying for it, right? Does this speak to your money mistakes before you now wrap your head around the concept of investment?
Absolutely, absolutely. Like, one of the limiting beliefs that I had, right, and the negative beliefs also had a negative impact on my finances, that I stayed broke when I was in Germany. And that is because as I mentioned earlier, the mindset that you have on money, right, and on investment is personal for everyone and shaped by the circumstances that you grew up in, your childhood experiences, you know. And so growing up in Germany as a child of migrants, my mother, she was most of the time a cleaner, you know, and getting welfare, you know, was not able to really stand on her own feet without the support of the government. And I'm incredibly thankful and grateful for that. But it also shaped the way I see money, and I had a built-in fear on spending money.
You know? Had fear of spending money.
Exactly. Once I had money, I didn't have this mindset of abundance, right, and the trust and of what is a good expense. I treated everything as an expense, as like a waste of money. And you know, it was also like that's how I started my own business. Actually, that was the precondition for me to dive into this new chapter in my life, in this new journey, because I later realized if I somehow want to survive in this capitalistic environment that we are living in, right, I will have to spend some sort of money on it, like on a business, if I want to start a business, right? And so that was one of my milestones in my journey when I decided to invest in myself. So in 2017, I invested into an Airbnb masterclass. Actually, before already I invested. That was my first investment, but it was small. Like, I learned to invest in myself, that investing in yourself, like for instance, buying a course, an online course, or investing in a masterclass, investing in a skill, is not an expense, it's an investment. So I had to shift my mindset around that, you know? And so in 2017, I had my first online course, learned some skills. And in 2018, I joined a community of investors who were building short-term rentals, mainly in Southeast Asia and in Germany at that time.
Building.
Rental arbitrage for Airbnb.
Yeah, okay.
And so, and it was because I trusted the mentor, because I knew that mentor personally, you know, and I admired his lifestyle, and he was giving out value for free, you know, on his blog post. That time, it was a time when people were more blogging before Instagram became really big. And so I trusted the value that I would get out of this purchase, you know? And yeah, it was the best investment in my life. You know, sometimes when I look back, just the other day, I think it was last month, I had this conversation with a friend of mine, and this purchase, right, this masterclass that I bought for Airbnb costed me $1,000. That was a lot of money for someone who doesn't have much, right? I told him, it's incredible. I was so scared to spend that money, thinking, what if it doesn't work out? Knowing damn well that it's all on me, that it will work out if I stay committed to the process, right? If I follow the roadmap, I will succeed. He was living proof that it works, the mentor. So, but still I had this fear of, what if it doesn't work out, right? And so I told my friend, imagine the life that this purchase, investment in myself allowed me to live, the transformation, like it changed my entire life, you know? A life that I could have not even dared to dream about at that time. Traveling the African continent full time, if you follow my YouTube channel, right? Having the freedom to decide when I work, how long I work, traveling when I work, when I want, where I want to travel to. If I had known that this will be the outcome of this investment in myself, I would have even invested 10,000 euro for this course. You know what I mean?
Understood.
So this is what I mean is by how I treat any purchase now, whether it's furniture, whether it's, you know, school education, whether it's a master class, an online course, right? If the value that I get out of this purchase is bigger than the money that I invest to, I'm buying it.
That makes sense. But let me track you back, kidogo. You said when you're in Germany, you are broke, right? You also mentioned somewhere that you had a job 9 to 5 and you had the comfort of like employment, right? But you also say you had the fear of spending money. How are you broke and fear is a good motivator? You fear spending, but you're still broke. Isn't that a paradox?
No, actually not, because in Germany, right, people work themselves, like they grind themselves to the ground. They have 2 jobs, right, 3 jobs. And I think also it was partially mismanagement, right? Not understanding how you can make the money work for you, right?
You can mismanage money without spending it. Like,
yes, absolutely. Like for instance, also like wasting money on certain things. Let me give you an example. I just came back from Germany and I realized also with my mom when I was doing her paperwork, how much money she was wasting for insurances. You will laugh, you will never believe me if I tell you how many insurances they sell to one single person and how much money they take from you on a monthly basis. So I was going with her through her finances. And it's funny because I had the same insurances back then when I was living in Germany. For instance, you have an insurance for, it's called like when you cause damages for somebody else, right?
Third party.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
So they will charge you $20 for that per month. Then she had extra insurance for glass. You know, this, they call it Ceran, cooking field. And that's the trap, because they govern you, they control you by fear, you know? The insurances, the government, they will tell you, you need this insurance. What if, do you know how much this stove costs? $700. If you take an insurance which costs you $10 per month, right? In case that breaks, you will get the refund for the whole stove. So she was paying in total 80 euro for that per year. Since 20 years, not a single time did it broke. you know? Did it break? Not a single time. Insurance for, what else do you have? Travel insurance, yearly. When most of the people, they don't even make it once to take a vacation per year, you know? Well, stop it, you know,
Wow.
so.
No, I'm following. I'm actually following because I'm tempted to go into probabilistic. It's very interesting that you say they invest in fear. I didn't look at it from that perspective. You spend money because you fear losing money. It's a very interesting mix-up, right?
No, you fear spending money because you're scared to lose money, and then you store your money on your bank account, you know? Because that's what I mean. It's also personal and the upbringing, because we were raised and programmed also by the family, from our culture, who experienced starvation, right, and hunger. They have they have this mindset, you know, you have to always put money aside for bad days, because that's how they survived famine, you know? So
Yeah.
the money is safe, don't spend it for the bad days, you know? And so instead of leaving your money on the bank, you should invest the money in yourself. And the reason why, even though I was scared to spend money, I was still broke in the end of the month, was because of all the bills, you know, student debt that you pay off. Because I got also, how do you call it, a scholarship that I have to pay back, right? Oh, so, yeah, it's crazy. People don't even understand the high cost of living, for instance. They don't understand where is all my money going to in the end of the month.
Okay, so this means in that mindset, it's a mindset of freedom, right? So you leave Germany, you come to Africa. Do you come because you have a job, or you come because you believe you can start from zero and build something?
So I must say, when I moved to Ethiopia, I started
We have some of the most expensive
before, started my first online business. I was selling products, private labeled products on Amazon. Okay?
Okay.
And even if that didn't bring me the biggest profit, I was able to manage that remotely, that business, plus my incentive was two, basically. So when you make money in euro, US dollars, right? And when you work remotely, that's when I learned about the concept of geo-arbitrage. That means move to a country where the cost of living is significantly lower. With the same money that you are making now, you will be able to put more aside at the end of the month. Because rent is a third of what you spend. That's why many digital nomads move to Bali, Thailand, you know, where the cost of living is much more affordable, where the rent is much more affordable. So that was the first thing. I believed in this concept of geo-arbitrage and wanted to put more money aside, which I then planned to invest in my own business in Ethiopia. And I already also knew what kind of business I want to start with. Short-term rental, building an Airbnb. And then also the opportunity I got to consult the Ministry of Tourism in Ethiopia.
Yes, yes.
But it was a limited job, only for 6 months. But I said, this is the chance. My kids are still very small. I will get a good salary in this job, even if it's a 9 to 5. On top of that, I have the safety net of the remote